everybody. Rob live back in the old school studio, the summer studio, right, Jim?
Yeah, it is. It's where the AC is. It's usually where we go.
Follow the AC. Okay, that's my mantra for the day. So everybody, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for following. We see our subscribers going up. We really appreciate that. Like and subscribe if you enjoy what we're doing. Jim really enjoys feedback. And so when you guys get a chance, put something in the comment about who you might want to see, questions you have about past guests, and we'll try to get them addressed. But today we have a brand new group coming in as far as our summer. Wait, we call this our fall group of individuals because we had like a summer run of like superintendents of schools and leaders. And so I feel like now we just had AJ Fox. So we're kind of going into the realm of media.
Yeah, my background.
Yeah, and Jim. And so because of Jim, we're getting all the heavy hitters.
Right.
Okay, we got the heavy hitters. We had AJ Fox here, and he's done 30 years as a weatherman. But today, we have an anchor for one of my favorite channels growing up because they had Creature Feature, and what else they have? 26 had some signature.
26 has some great cartoons in the,
exactly,
in the 80s.
So if you're an 80s or 90s person from the Central Valley, you're going to love this. Welcome to the studio, Mr. Monty Torres.
Good to be here. Thank you. I have to say I had no affiliation or association with Creature Features. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Creature. Yeah, no, that was what, 80s, huh?
Yeah.
The Creature Feature. Did you know about that? Were you aware of that show?
No, I wasn't actually. I mean, I think I may have seen it before. I'm not here at the time.
Yeah.
But I who doesn't love a lot of these old shows
Yeah.
you see on TV?
So here was the deal. This was our experience from the Central Valley for the Channel 26. It was the show. It was a channel that's most consistent with bringing back classic shows. For example, Happy Days was probably out of wasn't being recorded anymore, but I was still watching reruns. Yogi Bear, all this cool stuff, and so I really associated Channel 26 with things that I treasured that did not actually happen during my time, but I grew up to appreciate them.
Golden oldies.
Golden old, yeah, it's the best place to say. And as far as I inevitably, I was watching the news because you're watching your show and then the news comes on, and now you're the anchor and you've been there for 20 years.
20 years as of January.
Congratulations on that. Thank
you. It's a blessing and an honor. It's good to be here.
And in media, right, things change so quickly, and
they can.
So I do want to talk a little bit about longevity later. The secret sauce to sticking around. But I want to start with your origin. I believe you're from Los Angeles originally.
Yes, born in Los Angeles. Lived there early part of my life with my family, a large clan, my family, my dad and his 5 sisters and brother, and of course all of my cousins, many of them, till I went to school. I went to UCLA for a year, then I went to BYU to get out of LA.
Oh, so you went to Utah.
When I went to UCLA the first year,
yes,
I was driving, getting up and commuting across LA traffic.
From Montebello?
Yes.
Yes.
And that didn't work out so well. So I just got tired of doing that in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just get away and live on campus so I didn't have to worry about that. And so I said, I think I'll go out there to Utah. And I did that.
Wow.
And then and I didn't study broadcasting at the time. I actually was a political science major with a minor in international relations and psychology. That was in preparation for law school, which I went to for a year before deciding that I did not want to continue in law school.
So when did you say, yeah, not for me?
Well, I mean, it was always in the back of my mind because my dad was a lawyer, a successful lawyer down in LA. And of course, he wanted me to follow the same.
Yeah.
And I was open to the idea, but I didn't find the passion in it that I had wanted to find.
Yeah.
And so after going for that year, I let him know that wasn't the path I wanted to take. That wasn't the best time. But
how did he take that?
Not well. Not well. Later on, of course, he's fine. Actually, he liked it later on when I got into news and media. And I even got into the media by accident, in a sense that I took a class through UCLA, a weekend class through UCLA, what it's called at the time, their extension program.
Yeah.
And it was a class on the art of television interview. And it was taught, what was nice about that program, they still do, many of the classes are taught by working professionals in those fields.
Yes.
So it was taught by a producer, an executive producer over at, and public affairs host over at KCOP, Marilyn Solomon. And I took the class, and she just really liked what I did and invited me to audition and then be on the public affairs show in LA. Yeah.
What did she see in the classroom that said, get him an audition?
I don't know. That I wasn't shy, maybe, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, I'm willing to talk. And
Yeah.
in any event, they had me write a few things. I auditioned. They put me on the show. I had done a couple of things before that for was it UHF channel, KWHY. But in any event, I ended up 3 years on the public affairs show at KCOP, which is great because I was in LA on public affairs for 3 years there. And then I said, well, the TV thing is fun. I like it, but instead of interviewing people about their artwork or whatever we're doing, I think I'd rather veer into the news end of it. So I went back and I got my professional certificate from UCLA on that, which they equate to a master's. And from there, I started getting into the broadcast industry. Now, the way you get into that after that is basically once you've taken the classes and learned what you're learning, you make your audition tape.
Okay.
Back then, it was on big old 3/4 inch tape. You know what that's like. And you send these out, and that's your calling card. People see it and see you and decide if they're interested in you for their station or any of their shows or not. And that's how it started. And
the tape itself, is that you doing
it's of you? Yeah, it's of you. It's of you doing a newscast or a video, something like
fictional?
that. Well, at that time, yes, because I wasn't working, so it was fictional. But I mean, they produced it as usually it was produced by cable. Actually, we had one of the classes was over at KCAL in anchoring, and so that KCAL. No, was it KCAL? Yeah, is it KCAL? They did it was KTLA. Sorry, KTLA recorded our doing an anchor segment, and that's what we got to use for our reels for those of us starting out who had this class. So it was a nice class to take because we got that out of it to add to our reels.
Oh,
right?
okay. I was thinking that you might create like a fictional story to report on.
Well, back then too, we could do community cable TV, and you could they'd have their little hyperlocal news, and you could do stories for them and stuff like that. So it was just a little local cable TV, but you got a chance to do stories and report.
Yeah.
Go out with a cameraman, shoot something. So you'd come back with a story, and you'd have something for your reel.
That was your portfolio.
It's like a resume on.
Well, the reason I bring this up is because I was thinking, well, if you want to stand out, why don't you have a fictional story that you break out for the first time, like Loch Ness Monster confirmed at News at 6, right? And then it stands out as an audition tape, but it seems like it was like actual stories that were happening.
Yeah, you might get some good comedy bookings from that, they probably have a sense of humor. I'm sure you never know.
Yeah,
it depends on who's watching.
But you deliver it with a straight face, right? With a straight delivery.
I don't doubt that would have got the attention of some people who would have been, interested anyway. So yeah.
So I was talking to Jim about this, and I wanted to hear more about how the coaching of the delivery of the news, right? You because I've had the chance to meet you and other anchors, reporters off camera, and obviously it's a different dialogue and it's a different cadence. But as soon as the news hits, it has like a dance to it, right?
It's more well. I mean,
where does that come from?
It's more relaxed here as I sit and chat with you.
Yeah.
But when I'm on air, I don't know that I got coached so much at this. I just sort of reasoned certain things out. I mean, you get coaching when some people tell you back in the day when I was in school, they were telling you deliver flat, deliver straight, like that. And
what does that do for the audience?
I think it puts them to sleep personally.
That's what I was gonna say.
I don't like the aloof, giving off the aloof vibe.
Because something tragic is happening.
Yeah, I mean, I know that this. I get the concept that you're detached. You report the news. You're not the news. I get that. Understand that. But I think there's life in it,
Yeah.
And if you're communicating to people on the other side of that camera, then you want to share something of the empathy, I think, and of the feeling of the story. You're not going to act it out. I'm not talking about going that far, but I mean, there's feeling in there. There's the human connection, and I don't think it's good to lose that. Yeah. So, for me, and in my delivery, I started at a base point that, look, number one, clarity. I really try very hard to be very easy to understand in my pronunciation, very precise in my diction, because if you're not going to be understood, if you're not clear, then you're not communicating.
Yeah.
And I'm making an effort to do that. So that's a baseline piece right there. And then when it comes to the story itself, it's important to pre-read. there's so much communicated, not just in the words alone, but in the pacing, in the inflection, in when you pause and when you emphasize. And doing all of that, it's not an acting job. It's trying to communicate the essence of the story that you're trying to communicate. And you can do that better using all the tools in the palette, which includes, as you see me now, using the hands, which I do. Yeah. I do that a lot on TV because that's life. If you're talking to your favorite friends or best friends, it's probably a pretty animated discussion oftentimes because that's how people communicate. And it seems to add more to the communication and the exchange. So that's what I like to do. I like to be active. I like to move to help emphasize the points I'm making, what I'm saying at the time, and to make it as clear as I can with every tool I can find in the toolbox.
Wow. With that being said, I was thinking, jogging my memory, like, okay, what would have been a really tough news to break, right? And so 2020, right? We had, the name changed, right? We started with coronavirus, and then it changed to COVID. Then it was COVID-19. During that time, right, you were in the middle of all this. Mm-hmm. Do you remember first addressing this as a national concern and how you delivered that?
You deliver it as empathetically and yet as urgently as possible because it was a national health crisis. It was a thing causing a great deal of confusion and ultimately distress when people were so isolated for so long. Yeah. And controversy because of the questioning of the public in general and even professionals if that was the right way to go. So many people ended up sadly, very sadly and tragically, dying in isolation in hospitals where loved ones weren't able to visit them and so on. I don't know. I don't know that I could think that was the right way to go. Just that human connection and so on, and I get that it was an effort to keep people from contracting or passing this disease around and so on. There's just still so much not well understood about how that went. I hope never to see things happen like that again. It was just there were way too many stories of people being separated from loved ones and not able to see them. I was not in that situation with any of my loved ones, and I don't know that I could have easily tolerated that or accepted that. So that was one of the harder things to see is how things were being done and how just sad it was for so many who had loved ones apart they couldn't see and kept separate, and even those going up and hugging a grandparent behind a plastic barrier. Something's kind of sad about that.
Yeah. Did you feel conflicted at all with some of the information that you were having to share publicly?
Yes.
Like, CDC said this, and now you have to.
Well, I mean, I don't feel conflicted in reporting the facts. And if CDC says something, I can tell them CDC said this.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean I necessarily full-heartedly, like most people, necessarily full-heartedly accept what was said. I can reserve a bit of skepticism if I want to, and I did, and I retain it still, and to the extent that I can show or share a degree of that skepticism, which is again real, just honest. I'll let people know where I'm coming from. I do. I like I said, I still question how it was handled, what was done about all that, and I hope never to see that type of process again because there are some things that are still. Well, the controversy hasn't gone away. There's still some. I was just talking to somebody last night about that very same thing. So there's still a lot of resentment, alarm, and resistance about the way things went and what happened that I still hear about.
Agreed. What did the studio look like during that time? Were you guys still?
We got pretty isolated there too. We got separated in terms of our offices. We usually newsrooms we're like a collective newsroom together. We got separated around the building into some empty offices because most of the building was cleared out. People were told sales and stuff like that could go work out at home. Again, out of an abundance of caution to avoid transmitting anything. So there were a lot of empty offices, and we got shunted off to our different offices. So we were in isolation, and that was okay. It was. I didn't have a problem with that at all. And then we'd see each other when we'd go out there for the newscast, and it was pretty sparse. People there weren't as many people around during that time, or at least not in close proximity. Again, I get the precautions. I get that for the working environment.
Yeah.
But so I do remember that.
I just thought it was such a unique time to be in the media because when you're on camera, right, there's instant judgments, right? Oh, is Monty wearing a mask? How close is he to his co-anchor? You know, all these.
Yeah.
And the rest of us, we don't get scrutinized that way because we're not on television.
We were separated enough that we did not wear masks.
And did you guys get any comments coming into the studio at all about any feedback about how you guys were conducting yourselves?
You know, there might have been an occasional,
But nothing.
but nothing in a major way.
Oh.
So in terms of that, I've been pretty fortunate and very thankful that our audience has, most all the years here, been pretty supportive. Very rarely have I seen or received critical reviews of any kind. So,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
You're out there trying to do our best to bring the information, and yet I'm always open to constructive criticism as well. But I don't remember anything critical at that time of what we were doing in terms of presenting the news during that time.
Being recognized throughout the valley, right? Maybe at a restaurant, at a bar, etc. What kind of interaction do you have?
It's again always been nice. I've never had a.
Hey,
I've only
Monty.
had, yeah.
Do they feel like they know you?
Yes.
And you just kind of roll with it?
I just go up and greet him and say hi. What's your name? And happy to talk to him and chat and.
Is your wife in the business?
And she's not.
So is she? Does she ever like, Monty? Can we just have dinner once without people taking a picture?
She's really good about that. There's nothing like that going on.
What's her name?
Dina.
Shout out to Dina for being wonderful about that. I know some spouses could maybe not as receptive, right?
Well, what's been good about it is, like I said, all the interactions have been good. People are smiling and nice and friendly. I've never once had a negative experience like that. And it happens quite frequently where I see people out and about, and I'm just always happy to see them and thank them for watching, and saying hello, and I enjoy the interaction.
And then you have children, right? I believe
6.
You have a son. 6,
Yeah.
Nice, big family.
Yeah.
What's the age range?
Well, the oldest is now 35.
Is that the son that you met?
No,
Jim,
that's my daughter.
Who was you had a young.
The youngest is 23.
Okay, so 23
Wait.
to.
He's 23. He'll be 24 in December. Yeah.
Okay. And so it's 24 and range up to 36?
Yeah, 30. Yeah, going on 36.
And are any of them in the media world?
No, I had one son who tried it out, but he decided he didn't want to stay with that, so he was doing that for a little while. But apart from that, well, actually, I have a daughter who's doing like podcasts in Utah.
Oh, okay.
And but the rest aren't in media.
Do you have any family in Utah, or she just happened to be there?
My
when you went to
daughter,
school?
my one daughter, she went to school there, and so she stayed there. And she
Just
lives
like
there
Dad.
now. Yeah. And
Wait,
then
how long were you in Utah?
About 3.5, 4 years.
So here's my Utah experience. I want to see if it's similar. And I don't know if I ever told you this, Jim, but I went to Provo, Utah.
That's where the school was.
Okay. I want to say this was early 2000s, maybe late 1990s. And I was with my brother, and we were at a conference at the time. There was this company called Big Planet, right? And I remember, hey, let's go to a local bar. And so we walked in, and there was a guy at the front, and he said, hey, you guys need a sponsor. And I was like, wait, I'm not in AA. I'm just gonna have one drink. No, you need to be a sponsor to come in here and have a drink. And it was this weird thing where like you had to pay a couple dollars, and somebody would like sponsor you to come in. And I was like, where are we again? And my brother goes, this is Utah. I go, this feels like another country.
Well, it's kind of consistent with Utah history. I didn't go to clubs back when I was in school and stuff like that, so I didn't know that about going there.
Good for you.
But
stayed focused.
I was busy, yeah. But that doesn't entirely surprise me. I mean, it still comes from its historic Mormon background where they pretty much frown on alcohol anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think every state's different. That one of the states I've all been to felt significantly a different vibe there. And to be there for 3+ years, it must have been quite an experience.
What it was nice about it is I was living on campus. I could focus completely. I didn't have to commute back and forth.
Yeah.
And it was a smaller town, and I liked having open space around me. So, in LA, driving from Monterey Park to UCLA, that's just one asphalt,
Yes.
one big city basically.
I was going to ask you about that. Coming from Los Angeles and then settling here in the Central Valley, how did you end up here?
Well, it was a bit of a trek first. I mean, I started my career, my first full-time job was in Palm Springs. And then I was hired out of there as a reporter here in 96. And then after that, I went to Florida for a couple of years.
Oh, wow. What was that like? See any gators?
Humid, hot gators, yeah, bugs. But that's just, those are things you see. But I mean, there are a lot of nice things about it too. We lived in the Fort Myers area. And it was a nice experience to me. I tell you one funny thing. We went out there, my wife and I were talking, oh, wow, we're going to get out there. We're going to check it out. Florida oranges. I always hear Florida oranges.
Yeah.
Man, they have nothing on California oranges. The Florida oranges were not anywhere near as good. They're not as orangey. They're kind of watery, and that's why they use them for juice. But California's got the best oranges.
Wow, you hear that, Cali?
That's true. Our California farmers have the best oranges.
I would assume Florida too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's the advertising.
And they kind of use it more as their identity than we do.
They do.
Well, because we're a fruit basket, right?
Yeah, everything there. But it was fun there. You did have to check underneath the car before you got in for any alligators overnight.
Can you see that part?
That happens.
No. I've
Wait,
been
you were
there.
for
Yeah,
Disneyland
we've
or-
been there a couple times.
It depends on where you are. It's not going to happen in the middle of Orlando.
Yeah, no.
But I
no.
mean, if you're out where you have a canal in the back and you hear sloshing around every so often, things are back there.
But the interesting thing about it was when everybody's backyard pool had it was almost
Lanai,
enclosed.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. That was one of the funny things about it. California, we got pools all over the place, but you don't
all
see
open.
these lanais. But that's to keep out all the biting bugs,
the rodents and everything,
Yeah.
and the alligators, and
And
it was
the-
just
the no-see-ums, as they call these little biting things over there.
Oh, well, yeah, and then snakes. I just couldn't handle snakes or whatever. But they had, but beautiful. I mean, everything's green,
That's
like
true.
on steroids green. It
The
rains
rain,
in the
no,
afternoon,
humidity.
and
But your highest elevation are freeway overpasses. Everything is just flat.
yeah, and there's a toll every 5 miles.
Did you guys do the Everglades or?
Well, I mean, there's first of all, there's a lot of swamp in the South.
Okay.
Getting down there, getting down there and driving through there, even through Alabama and Georgia, a lot of swampy area. You're on an elevated highway, and then there's the you know where they just the news Alligator Alcatraz they were building out there the detainment center.
Yes.
That's along Alligator Alley, that's what they call the main freeway that goes from West Florida to like the Miami area, Alligator Alley, because you cut through the Everglades and the
So on the
swamp
right and
area.
left, as you're driving, you're just seeing.
You're looking.
Oh, I've got to see that.
But they call that nickname for that freeway was
Alligator Alley?
Alligator Alley.
Wow. So then you end up here in the Central Valley.
No, but then after that, I went to Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay.
We
wow.
launched the news there for the station, WXMI, and I was up there for 2 years. Went from hot and humid to pretty frigid up there.
Just the extremes.
Yeah. But what was interesting there, a couple of good memories over there. One was I learned that a seasonal affective disorder was a real thing because up there, 6 months of the year was gray and cold, and being a Cali boy,
Yeah.
growing up here with sun all my life, not seeing it for 6 months was like, wow. I didn't realize that it had a bit of a effect until I started putting bright lights all over the house. That helped.
Define that condition for us.
Well, it's seasonal affective disorder. Is they call it when you can tend toward getting either depressed or feeling a lack of energy due to the lack of sunlight for long periods of time. Like if you move to a northern climate and it's cloudier, it's colder, and you essentially do not see the sun for a long time.
I'm picturing Alaska when you say
Well,
this.
no, it's even the northern states. You go up to Michigan, you go up to Grand Rapids. They're up here at long periods of time where it's just gray and cloudy a lot because it's cold and it's winter.
Oh, man.
Well, I think isn't Seattle, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
one of the most suicidal states in the country?
It's a thing.
Yeah,
It's
it's
seasonal
only
affective disorder.
it's literally only sunny for like maybe 100 days of the year or something like
Yeah.
that. Something like that.
But you can alleviate that with full spectrum light bulbs and stuff like that. And I learned I didn't think about it because you don't think about it,
Yeah.
right? Coming up in California.
we're
So I
kinda-
started putting the lights all over in the bathrooms and get up and that helped a lot. And that was an interesting thing. And then the other thing was the fall was spectacular. Growing up in California and reading the books when you're in grade school, all the colors of fall. I said, I just see brown and green. I don't know what you're talking about in Southern California, right?
Yeah.
And I had no idea what the colors of fall were. And then I go out there, and in the fall there, wow, silver and gold and maroon and
I'd love to see that.
purples and yellows. I couldn't believe all the colors that you just go driving down the streets looking at all these colors because they're shimmering as the wind's blowing them, and you see that, and that was spectacular. Then I really learned finally what the colors of fall were.
And fall was probably more than 2 months, right?
Yeah,
3 months.
yeah, but it was a spectacular experience to see all those colors like that, and that was again nice to see.
So okay, so the color of fall, this is what I'm picturing. The big three: red, yellow, orange.
Yeah, up there in I saw yellow, silver, gold, like magenta. I mean, just the variety of trees and the colors were really stunning.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was neat to see. And then after Grand Rapids for a couple of years, I ended up with the NBC O&O in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay.
And I was there for 5 years.
It's like a military career.
I did. that was my 10-year East Coast exodus.
How does this work? Like, hey, Monty, you got your papers? You're shipping out tomorrow. Like, how does it
My
work?
papers.
Like military, they just send you to new places.
No, what happens
Or is this you moving?
It's who sees your video, your tape.
Oh, okay.
Nowadays, it's not that. It's a link. It's on YouTube, and you just email a link if you're going to do that.
Did you have an agent by then?
I did.
You did.
Yeah.
All right. So they were recruiting you.
Yeah, and they would shop around my video.
Yeah.
So how
And
do
then-
agents work? Is it the same as like with an
Yeah,
actor?
they get their percentage, and they send out their video, and it's seen, and they negotiate they ask you if you're interested in that job, and then they negotiate, and they fly you out, and you visit, and
Very
it goes
cool.
like that. And so, and you never know where somebody or who's going to see and call up and say, hey, we'd like to talk to you. So it just comes out of the blue. I didn't pick Florida. I didn't pick Grand Rapids, Michigan. I didn't pick North Carolina, other than to accept after they expressed interest and we visited and the offer was made and so on. But that's how that came about. But it was enriching to travel. My kids were young. I was fortunate. My kids were young. It wasn't harder. It was easier because it was an adventure wherever we went, and they all went with me. And it was fun to see different parts of the country. Very enlightening and enriching. I have my oldest daughter, who was talking about later on as she grew up, and she says in class it was always fun because they'd be talking about different places. She goes, "Oh, we went there.
I've been there.
Now, were you looking for market size, climbing up the ladder?
Generally, that's the attitude as you go from market size, climb the ladder.
What is Florida? Where are they at now? Because we're 55 still, right?
Yeah, they were comparable, but a little smaller than this. But the market size depends too when you're early in your career, because you may start as a reporter, but it's a move up into an anchor slot if you're looking for that. So you can go down in market size to move up in position if that's what your direction is. So while generally you're looking at larger markets, you're also looking at the ultimate position you're interested in that you feel is the best fit.
For our non-media audience members, you just threw out a number 55. It means nothing to us. Break this down.
So, well, he would know more than I. What I teach my kids is we have 211 markets in the country, right?
Correct.
Including Alaska. We're market 55. When I was in Sacramento, it was 19, and the higher, the bigger the market, the lower the number. So if you can imagine,
our number one
our
market?
number one is New York. Number 2 is LA.
Okay.
Number 4 is San Francisco. What's 3?
It's not Chicago anymore.
It might be Chicago. Yeah.
These
think
numbers.
Chicago.
So it
Yeah, it's
depends on
population-based.
population,
Okay.
size, and so on. So I know that we're competitive with Vegas, and so on. So yeah,
And it's not just on the city. It's like metropolitan area. So it can include several cities. For example, LA is not LA alone. It includes Long Beach and includes that whole metropolitan area down there.
Yes. So I want to point this out, and I'm sure you've heard this before. When I first met you, I don't get the anchor vibe as much as I get accomplished celebrity actor vibe. Like you have like a leading man vibe to you. Was there any movies, or was there any interest in being in movies and television?
Apart from joking with my mom when I tell her I act every night, I just tell my mom that. She lives with us. We take care of her.
Oh,
So
okay.
I like playing around with that. But I mean, no, sure, when I was younger, I did a little acting thing, a little stage.
Is there any movies we could find? We could put links to?
Actually, the only movies you'll find right now are me where they purchased me being an anchor. I'm an anchor in in these a few movies.
Oh, okay.
Here and there. There's in fact there was the docudrama recently. The most recent one was one on Kai the Hitchhike.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the axe
They had me
slayer.
doing
Yeah,
they had me doing a segment.
that was a
of,
documentary.
right? And then they have
That's the
there's
Netflix documentary on.
yeah,
Kai.
yeah.
Okay. All
I'm in
right.
that, and then there was a movie done about. It was a movie done about a controversy way back regarding, I guess when it was about. I don't remember the name of the movie now. These things I don't ever know about until I'm told later on. Hey, we saw you with this, and so.
Oh, they don't even.
No, they don't tell me.
So they
Because
just take
the
footage.
station owns the footage.
Okay.
So if
Yeah.
a producer wants to buy it, they buy it from the station and they use it.
Yeah,
And,
you don't
I
get any
just told
royalties
later.
at all.
Oh no!
Yeah, no.
What?
No, and in fact, I think I'm going to give Fox 26 credit with that because who was your your reporter who actually interviewed Kai?
Jessup Reisbeck.
Yeah, so a lot of it was based on his experience interviewing Kai,
Right.
the Hatchet Man,
Yeah,
whatever.
I watched that documentary.
And so yeah, it was pretty cool. So
Monty, yeah, that's right. You were in there.
There's a movie about Sean Penn's in it. I'm not sure it's Robin Wright, but it's somebody else too. No, it's not Robin Wright.
Mystic River?
No, it's about the controversy about the outing of a CIA agent or something like that. Said I think it was by Bush or something like that, or I don't know who it was by. They said they outed her in some kind of political controversy, and I'd have to look up the name of the movie. I just flashed up there. They had me doing a news report on that story within the movie.
Yeah.
And so I got told later on, people that I worked with would say, "Hey, we saw you in this movie." I said, "Really?" I didn't
It's funny to find out that way.
It is. And when I first got here, shortly after I first got here, there was a documentary done on you remember those, they called them the Nazi twins, they called them. And they were just because they were two young girls who were brought to do, they were a singing group, basically. Prussian Blue is the name of it. And a British guy came here and made a documentary of them because it was, I don't know why they called them Nazi Twin Pop, but that's the name. But anyway, it was about it, and it was a little controversial because of the nature of they sung it. They weren't, I don't think they were Nazis. I mean, I don't know why they called them that, but in any event, the name of it was Prussian Blue. And they opened the documentary with me doing a story on it. And I got told later on, "Oh, did you?" My news director,
Yeah.
Roger Gadd, they called me over and said, "Did you know you were in this?" I said, "No." Well,
That's so
what's
strange.
this about? and I saw it, but so that's how I find out I'm in a movie
That's
here.
how you find out. But did
there was
you
no
ever,
check in the mail. That's
there's
the
no
deal.
check,
You didn't
okay.
find it.
But was there
So-
anything that you ever had when you were younger where you auditioned and had a part line?
Okay, yeah, I did, but not so much movies. I did a little stage work, and then later on, for a lot of my actually a lot of my career until a few years ago, I haven't done it recently. I like singing. I like to sing.
Oh, right. Do you have a band?
No, I don't have a band, but I end up doing most. I've done that, like when they've had little sideshows or stuff like that. I've sung with the band here and there, but mainly I've done with local opera companies, and I've done some opera stuff.
Oh, wow.
Not a full opera, but you do an aria here, or you do a highlight song and stuff like that. And so I've done that.
Are you like classically trained? Because that's not easy
A
stuff.
little bit. I just tell people I'm loud, so or I can be.
very
I did have
impressive.
some training. I enjoyed doing it, and I sang with the Opera Company of North Carolina.
Wow.
The California Opera Association here, the Opera Company of the Desert down in Palm Springs, also out in Florida. So I've done these, and I've enjoyed it. You'll do classic arias here and there, or maybe favorite. They'll do some favorite things from musicals like Phantom of the Opera or
Yeah.
some of these others. And I've enjoyed doing that over the years, and various things. I made an appearance once. In fact, if you look at one of my old reels from 2017, you'll find a clip there of me doing the national anthems, which I've sung around town, and then from Cinco de Mayo, some mariachi in the morning show over there. Great day. So it's fun to do. I like it because people are happy. You sing and people are happy. And
Well, and I would say this, and I don't know how much you share that with your audience. Do you? I mean, do you normally let that?
Well, I mean, I've done this on air. I don't talk about
I see.
it,
You've done it.
but I've done it on air.
Nice.
They've showed it on air when we've done when I've done the national anthem before. And
Is that baseball games or?
I've done baseball games before. Haven't done it in a while. Done baseball games. Done hockey games. certain events here and there where they might ask if they need somebody to sing national anthem.
Oh.
I'm happy to do it because it's our national anthem.
And it's interesting because, Monty, you said this earlier, where your audience, you in the beginning of reporting and anchoring, that was the trend of being strict. You're not the news, so just report the news. Eventually, and you pointed out this earlier, was when people start to realize you're a human being. You talk with your hands, you're looking engaging. When the anchors talk back and forth to each other, I've always grown up thinking, oh, they're off script. Are they allowed to do that? But it makes your audience feel more personable to that person. So hearing that you do that on the side, and stuff is really enlightening to people that don't know these people. They think they know you, like you said before. They come up to you and they talk to you, and it's like, I feel like you've known me. You're part of the family. You're in our room, our living room every day,
every night.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Well, I don't think. You mentioned that there's maybe a difference in presentation from when I'm on air and when I'm talking to you. And I imagine there is a degree. Like I said, I make an extra effort to be more precise in my diction and in clarity when I'm on air to make sure the audience deserves that, and I'm going to try and be as clear as I can. But I don't try to hide my. If I feel emphatic about something, I don't try to hide it even on air. I don't try to, or if I'm puzzled by something, I won't hide that necessarily in my face. I try to be real that way. I like that in people.
Yeah.
And I think it's honest to do that.
Yes.
So I think that's the way to go.
Is there a fine line though with that? Sorry. Is there a fine line?
Yes.
Because you can't let people really know your opinion about something that's supposed to be neutral on air.
Correct. You're right. There is a fine line. And so, it's one thing to be able to communicate a degree of concern or puzzlement, but that's not the same as communicating some going to the point where you communicate disagreement or disapproval or an alternate opposing opinion. And if that I don't do. I don't go out and give my opinion that way on a story for the most part. Not on air anyway. But I have my opinions like everybody does, and I don't know. The fine line is we're all individuals, and we all have a degree of bias, one way or the other, because of who we are and what our experiences have brought us to, and so on. To pretend that you don't is not honest. So to restrain your opinion out of respect for the fact that you're trying to be impartial and do that, that's understandable, and but I'm not. I don't want to try and pretend that I may not have an opinion, and so that's the fine line, to try and let people know you're real and as being as honest as you can, but not interject too much into the story you're trying to communicate.
Yeah, and going into that, I've always watched different networks. If you watch CNN, Fox, CBS, and all these different affiliates, that you could totally tell, and it's so biased to watch CNN to know they hate Trump, to watch certain networks to where you need to make sure you are giving yourself that, going back to the traditional way of just give me the news. I don't need to hear your personal opinion about whatever it is. Right. And I think that's the difference between local and network, as far as knowing like what it is you're watching. What's
disturbed me when I see some of these times, it's so transparent. You see a campaign going on when you see across the board, from political figures to media people, using the exact same language, then you know that there's a level of coordination there that is very disturbing. I don't like that, because, it's not like that. Everybody, including the media, should not be in lockstep with political leaders and so on to put out a same message. That, to me, smacks of partiality, and I don't think it should be that way.
Do you know what he's talking about, Robert?
I think it's when, let's say a story breaks out and everybody has the same exact opinion verbatim in response to the story.
Not just opinion, but words. They're labeling, they're branding, they're working together to brand, and I don't like that.
So you'll see these videos where they'll have like all these collage of people saying the same words, and it's like, see, it's all manipulative. They're saying someone wrote that script, and a lot of it came down the wire. A lot of it came down the feed from the higher level and saying, this is a script we want you to write or read based on this story. And these,
the disturbing part of that is that includes political
Yeah.
officials, House, Senate, whoever, elected officials, and the media saying the same things. And in those cases, it bothers me because that I don't like to see that collusion there. I think there should be at least a degree of apartness. I don't think the media, I mean, granted, we communicate the news. We communicate the news coming out of the legislatures and so on. So yes, to a degree, we are a mouthpiece for the government. But when it comes to partisan political attacks, one against the other and so on, I don't think we should be part of that quite so easily in terms of the labeling. And I don't like to be part of that.
I understand. Wow. What was the most difficult story personally that you ever had to deliver? Maybe it resonated with you, maybe reporting on a loss of young lives or anything. Was there any time when you just felt very emotional having to deliver some sort of news?
Well, I would say that in most cases, it does involve death, the death of innocence, the tragic death of somebody. That's always hard to communicate, and to communicate it with both respect and empathy and respect for the surviving family.
Yeah.
I mean, that's and sadly, it's a reality in our world. These happen, and this often makes the news for one reason or the other. So it is never it's never an easy thing to deliver that type of news.
Yeah.
Just on a personal level, that's what I would point at.
So when I was at the studio, I believe Channel 30, this was maybe about a month ago too, because they have the advisory boards that meet.
Yeah.
I was part of the advisory board that represents Kings County, talking about local issues. And when I'm in there and I'm walking through the hallways to get to our meeting room.
Yeah.
And I see one of those is it called wanted or watch out for this person?
Yeah.
Posted up there. I go, wait, what is this? And they said, well, sometimes people get very, I don't know exactly how you would word this, but they get fixated on who's delivering whatever that message may be. And as a reporter of the news, they may disagree with something that you're sharing publicly out in the media, and they show up to the studio and try to get in sometimes.
Yes.
Right. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I didn't even know this was a thing. And I think most people out there, right? Let me know, YouTube, if you know about this. Have you ever had an incident where someone's trying to get into the studio because of something they disagreed with that you guys were sharing or maybe in protest?
Yes, we have had incidents. Not directed at me personally that I'm ever aware of, but there have been incidents where people have come around, sadly, oftentimes fixated on some of our female anchors or reporters.
Oh, like a stalker situation.
Yes, and that's been something we're always on the watch for. I mean, just collectively as a news crew to help to protect our team and such. But I would say that our company, Sinclair Broadcast, and our managers have done a great job of prepping our station. They've made some great new additions, added fencing, securing the fencing,
lot. I see
parking
that.
lot. So they're proactive about that, and they're very concerned about the well-being of our staff and our news crew, and so we've got cameras all over the place. We've got private security on call if they need them. So that's been good to see. I'm glad to see that there.
Now that you bring that up, I'm thinking this was the early form of social media. You guys are on the news regularly. Mm-hmm. We see your physical likeness, and it exposes you to an entire audience, right? Mm-hmm. Some well-intentioned and others not. Have you ever had an incident where somebody was fixated on trying to meet you, or
not in? Well, I mean, I guess everybody has at one point or another had a social media stalker. Repeated attempts that way, but it's been social media, so that you get used to it and you can pick them off or whatever and not have to worry about that.
Blocked
in person, coming to the studio to see me, that hasn't happened, and I'm thankful for that.
Yes.
I'm mindful of the fact that could always happen.
Yes.
It does happen. It has happened, but the station stresses, security. Watch when you come in. Nobody's behind you. Watch when you drive in. Nobody's behind you. Let people know. And we've had times where we alert each other and we let each other know and stuff like that if there's anything to be watchful for. So I would just say thanks be to God, and our team members. Everything's been safe so far. Hopefully and prayerfully it remains that way.
It's been interesting in my 27 years in television. I've worked with certain anchors and reporters that are married, and they purposely do not wear their wedding ring on air because of the fact that, oh, that's a pretty nice ring. And then you might have someone that wants to actually rob them or whatever. But I've also worked with people that have actually worn a wedding band to the fear of whether or not they're single or not, whether or not there's a man involved in their lives or a woman, so on. But another situation, depending on the market, and Monty, you've probably worked in these networks before, but some vehicles aren't labeled; they're not marked. That we go out in the field.
Oh, yeah.
So you would stereotype a certain channel. But because of maybe for retaliation towards covering a story that these people didn't like, they were going to throw rocks at us or whatever it is.
KC-24
band.
band.
Yeah. So I don't know if any other markets you've worked at didn't drive any cars that had a label on it or whatever. I know LA was doing it for a while, but I don't know if that trend has kind of gone away.
I don't. Well, what's gotten worse over the last 20 or so years is the targeting of news vehicles for thefts and break-ins a lot. So that may have increased the tendency to going with no logos. Up until now, though, I have not noticed in my earlier situations where they took away the logos, we weren't having that much of a problem back then in the markets I had been in. Now, though, I know it's spreading and it's been more of a problem. I've heard many in San Francisco. I've heard other places where they'll steal the cameras and things like that, and so it may be something done to avoid that, but I haven't experienced it.
So changing the subject here, I teach broadcasting in my class, and we were talking about networks and affiliates and that sort of thing. And I was going down the rundown of like what an affiliate is and how you get their video from and so on. And someone said, "Who's number one? Who's the number one station in Fresno?" Because I at first I said, "Hey, does anybody watch the news?" And there were a few kids actually out of my 35, and they only watched it because mom and dad did. And so the generation is starting to dissipate as far as how we get to our viewers now because of streaming and everything's all live streaming and so on. Right. But when I was talking about, I said, in the past, 30 has always been the dominant, basically, because of Disney, and they're just big. They have all the money for a lot of it. But it was interesting because correct me, Monty, because you've been there. The number one in ratings is technically 26 because it's only a 10 o'clock show. So I was kind of explaining that to them. But is that still on the map?
I haven't seen the ratings lately. I know for a long time we had been the dominant station at night. For a long time, in fact, for a long time. A few years really back, our ratings had been such that we had higher ratings than all the other stations put together. After at 11, I don't know that that's that case now. I haven't seen the latest ratings. We haven't even gotten the May ratings yet for some reason. I don't know why. So I would hope it's still that way.
But it was because the kids were like, "Well, how is that possible if 30 has all the money and blah blah blah?" But I'm like, "But they don't have any competitors. They're a 10 o'clock show. They're the only ones."
Advantage. That
nice
and
strategy.
the fact that there are people who say, "Oh, I'm too tired, so I just stay up at the 10 and I go to bed." And they say, "Yes, do that."
Go to sleep right after that.
Right.
Yeah. Turn off the TV. Then there's no.
But
right.
I mean, that's an advantage that we're lucky to have. I mean, I like all the stations in town do a great job. They look great on air. Have good talent and everything like that. And it's really that's why it's a competitive field. But we do have had that advantage of being on a 10 for the early audience and for the fact that we hadn't had a direct competitor. They took a run at us a couple times with both 30 and I think NBC also 24 had run something on one of the other stations at 10 for a while, but then they went away because it didn't really.
Yeah, I think it was 24. Yeah.
Yeah. So all I know is that we're still here, and so
still
and we're glad to be there.
Wow.
Thank you.
So I'm the social at Sierra Pacific High School, the high school that I work at, right? I run all the social activities to keep the staff cohesive and working together, collaborative. And then I watch Anchorman, and I see all these guys hanging out together and going to the bars and the jokes and whatever, almost like a locker room.
The gang
vibe.
fights.
Yes, the gang fights against the other channels. Is there a sense of camaraderie and do people actually hang out, or is it more like, we get the work done and then we have to get back home and to our families?
For us at late nights, it's a little harder. I mean, there were a few times in the past we might try to get together and afterwards when there was a TGIF Friday and stuff like that, just briefly. But And there's a sense of camaraderie in the sense that if I see somebody from one of those stations, I'm always happy to see them. I know we have shared experiences with respect to the profession and what we do. So I don't have anything but good feelings toward seeing other people and competitors. It's not like, in case anybody's wondering, no, we don't really have gang fights.
When you watch a movie like that, what is your reaction?
Obviously it's funny. You gotta laugh at
slapstick.
But is there some truth to that joke?
Only enough so that people think there is now after seeing that movie. Maybe there's that kind of rivalry in some stations in some cities. I don't know. I've never felt that. Sure, you're in competition all the time. You want to beat the other station. You want to do better than they do. But it's kind of a friendly rivalry, more like a sports rivalry than I think, instead of an anger. Maybe managers feel differently. I don't know. But on camera, I don't feel any animosity.
Is there a Central Valley media get together, like annual convention type thing, where we'd find all of you guys under the same roof?
There should be.
There should be. Yeah, there probably would be nice if there were.
Oh, I thought there was. Maybe
no. I mean, they have. You might find many people show up at the annual Emmy Awards and stuff like that. But that's not in town. That's elsewhere.
When I was in Sacramento, they had a thing over there called Media Night, and local. If anyone's listening, please do this, because I think it really brings in your local high contenders, sheriff officer, lawyers, everyone. And Media Night was a night that once a month a local restaurant would host Media Night, and it would invite all the politicians, all the bigwigs, all the big head honchos that have been voted in, whatever it is. But then the media showed up, and it was inviting the media to then have an opportunity to network, get their story straight, contacts. And it was pretty cool, because
that's a pretty good idea.
It was very good idea, and it was once a month that they did this when I was over there. And so you're standing next to, at the time it was the governor's office people that were there, and there was this over here, and all these different stations, their medias, their news directors were there, and everyone's just hanging out. So it was a good time.
Different channels.
Yeah.
So when will you be starting that up?
Right, I know. But I think it worked. It worked well, because you had media, you had politicians, you had city council, you had city officials, you had law enforcement, ambulance. You had everyone there. There was probably about 40, 50 people at these restaurants every month.
So wait, is it politicians or is it media?
Everybody.
People?
It was called Media Night, but everybody who was somebody went. Yeah, in the town. And
I go to that.
Yeah, it gave everybody a chance to, here's my card, network.
Yeah.
We're doing a story coming up. We're going to, whatever.
Tap and Cellar.
Yeah.
Tap and Cellar.
Tap and Cellar.
You guys hearing that? Have you been there?
Not that I recollect.
Yeah, we've been there a couple times.
Yeah, it's hard to find, but it's a good place.
Off of Blackstone. Yeah, it'd be a great spot.
Yeah.
Think about it. You guys could put that together with the band. Oh, and then we would have the music, the talent would be, you'd be singing.
There we go.
And then AJ with Los, what are they called?
His band, his band.
Yeah,
we could have all like
that'd be fun.
Oh my!
And then we'll go live. We'll go live there.
Right? Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be cool.
And then we'd have all of them in one place. Maybe we should coordinate that.
Dude, that'd be sweet.
All right, hey,
Monty.
I think it just happened.
I think we did, Monty. I think we got this
There
going.
it is,
Yeah.
Let me know.
We'll put you as a voice as our promo.
Have you ever thought of branching off and maybe, starting your own thing, like a show or a?
Actually, I thought a little bit about it. Our station would like us to go in that direction. Is encouraging that.
Yeah.
It's just a step that I'm trying to figure out how to exactly do. Maybe I'll just pick you guys' brains.
Oh,
yeah.
I have ideas. I have thoughts. And I'm also trying to figure out how to work it in with my current schedule with what I'm already doing.
Yeah.
And then again, and part of that too, I have, and then with my family life, my mom is 90 and we take care of her at home. She's there at my house with my wife and I. So it's just us there taking care of her. All my kids are grown, already moved. So I don't want to take away my time with both my wife and my mom.
Yeah.
And
you never get that back.
right. And so I have to be careful not to encroach on that. So I have to figure out how much time is the station willing to carve out for me to do something like that. And we haven't had that discussion, but I'm open to try and figure out how to do it if I can figure out how to do it. I have some thoughts of what I would do if I had a podcast or did a daily, things like that. I have to admit, with my regular daily routine, I haven't really sat down and tried to figure out how to put together these little shorts for TikTok and Instagram like that to do it efficiently, quickly in whatever time I have on a daily basis. But I have an idea of what I would do if I did that.
Well, it's just like what you said as far as giving you a chance to put together an audition tape.
Yeah.
You have to sit down and do it, right?
That's right.
You got to
And it
sit
takes
down.
time.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
You have to learn the tools
Yeah.
and for each different thing like that, and the system for that.
Well, give us a call.
Okay.
What do you think? Maybe is that your next step, or
Possibly. Like I said, I'm at the stage where I'm at the precipice. Okay, I'm here saying, now how do I do this? And that's where I am right now, and I haven't crossed that yet. In terms of putting together, do I have to set up a studio at home? Do I have to, order, get different cameras? So I'm trying to figure out what I would need to do all this and how to make it happen.
yeah?
And I really haven't gone out yet and asked a lot of people about it, because I know some other people who have done podcasts too and such. But I'm just it's percolating up here,
Yes.
and I have the thoughts on my end. The part that I'm most familiar with, I know my delivery. I know what I would do and how I do it, and what I've seen and what I think I want to do, the way I would do it if I do it, which wouldn't be in a suit and tie, wouldn't be like regular news, because if people want to see it, they usually go to usually go to
that's
social media
already
in a different format. It would be a slightly different format, a different look, but I think I know. I think I have a feel for it. I just have to figure out how to put all the elements together and make it happen.
In all these years in media, I always ask people who are in media for multiple years, do you have a favorite celebrity interview, encounter, interaction that really resonated with you?
Celebrity interaction.
Like Hulk Hogan came in the studio and he's like, Monty. Wait, that's a terrible Hulk Hogan. He doesn't sound like that.
No.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. I can't say that I've had. I mean, I've met celebrities, interviewed them, political people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I've not really been into the celebrity interview type of thing. I've really kind of been a person who likes the news, the international, national news, local news too, talking to folks. And I'm not been into the. I like meeting celebrities, I guess, and talking to them, but I've not really been one of those who have been so fascinated about following them and reporting on them in that regard. I'll do it if I'm assigned to do that.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for myself, but he might be on the same thing. But I think when you're in the media, it did with me after a while. The celebrity, what's it called? The wow factor.
Yeah,
It goes away.
The excitement.
Because I interviewed Arnold twice when he was in governor. When he was a governor, I was over there, and it's like
I thought that was kind of different when you told me that, because I always envisioned you behind the camera.
Yeah, but you're still there with a reporter talking to your person,
Oh,
and
okay.
then when
All
you're
right.
done,
Got it.
I mean, I met Kobe Bryant, I met Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I met a lot of celebrities. I've interviewed Elton John, certain things, but none of them really made me wow, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, I met Mariano Rivera. I interviewed him, and he came to our high school, and he was at our school for 3 hours. And after a while, it's like he's just a human being that puts on a pair of pants like I do.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But here's the part that I think we overlook: being in a certain place. For example, Monty, 20 years as an anchor, right? Mm-hmm. After 20 years, you may not realize just how distant that occupation might look from the outside looking in, right? Like when we see on television, it would be like, how do you even start? You knew all the steps, and it's now common knowledge to you. But for someone on the outside looking in, like, well, how do you even get into the MLB? And to me, that's the part where I want to interact with somebody and pick their brain, kind of like today.
Happy to share it. Pretty much, we touched on it earlier. I went to school, to classes. Once I got that certificate at the time, and went to those classes. I mean, also a lot of it depends on elements of your presentation, your ability to speak, and your willingness to speak.
Let's just go back to confidence. You're in front of a camera every night.
Yes.
Right. And that takes a certain level. Like, where did that come from?
Well, I wouldn't say that it was there completely from the beginning. I did learn to speak early on. But in terms of the daily camera thing, it's like anything else. You do everything. You do something daily. take through your podcast, for example.
Yeah.
There are some people who would not necessarily come out here and get in front of on a podcast and feel comfortable about speaking, candidly outright because it's not something they're used to. But you do it often enough, and it becomes routine. You become used to it. You understand. I like to tell people when I first started doing the news, I would equate the feeling of speaking to a camera, tell somebody you want to see what it feels like. Go to a corner and talk to it. You get nothing. It's a flat wall. You get no energy, and that's why. And that sort of seems to fit those earlier flat deliveries. You get nothing back when you're talking to a person like I'm talking to you right now.
Yeah.
There's actually an energy flow, and you feel it. You
Yeah.
see the reaction, whether it's it's one of those you can't put your finger on it, but you see it, you feel it, and it changes the dynamic of the conversation. When you're talking to a camera, you're talking to an inanimate object, and that's where your imagination has to come in terms of who am I seeing behind that, who's watching, whether it's you're talking to your mother or your best friend or whatever. That element of projection comes in because it helps in terms of bringing out your more natural personality and ability to communicate whatever it is you're trying to transmit, to realize real people are there.
See, that's the argument. I made this with Jim, and I think he's on board. He's just the technical side. We want this to eventually transition into a live audience where I'm, we're interviewing Monty,
Sure.
but there's an audience reacting to it. And for me, that stems from being a classroom teacher, right?
Sure.
Tuesday, I will be in front of an audience of 30, and it'll rotate 6 times.
Yeah.
And I'm reading their faces and their reactions. And when I'm losing them and when I'm, right, if I'm asking a question they actually wanted to know the answer to, they kind of lean into.
Yeah.
Right, that's gone. We don't have that yet. But the big dream is to have a studio audience and bring people like yourself on the show and maybe even some musical guests, right? And it's that, what you're saying, that energy and that flow. And the reason I brought this up is my sister called me a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, "Hey, nobody laughed at your joke." And I was like, I know, right? Because there was no audience, right? And he didn't laugh. And he rarely reacts to anything I say. He's a whole different story, Jim. We're going to do a whole
Monotone,
episode on
yeah,
Jim.
Monotone.
Not only that, but just lack of not recognition. What is it?
Personality?
No,
Yeah,
affirmation. Anything.
Yeah, affirmation.
Hey, Monty, that was great. Those are beautiful boots. Like, it's all like, what is Jim thinking, right? Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But my sister, we had a guy who was a jet fighter pilot, Top Gun, right? And I said, hey, do you now he's a commercial airline pilot. I was like, do you kind of take a walk around the plane before you start to kind of make sure everything's in order? He's like, no, we go out there and we have a checklist. And as a pilot, we walk around, the mechanics around. I'm like, oh yeah, you kick the tires, right? Now, little Ralph, right? Nothing from him, nothing from that guy. And I was like, oh, I bombed on that one. My sister calls me and goes, oh, that was so funny. I don't get it. Why didn't anyone laugh? If I had an audience, right, they would have caught it. But I think I think he's looking at the angle, and he's looking at, is Monty still in focus? Is Rob going to take it right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that they have to worry about.
Yeah, and the jet fighter pilot is like focused on answering.
Yes.
So, but my energy, most of it, and in fact, with you exude a lot of energy because you have a strong personality, would come from that audience. And that's the missing piece for us. Do you think if you did a show, you'd want a live audience or you'd like a one-on-one?
Yes, to both.
He's probably
Depends on the
already
show.
used to not with an audience.
I've been to before live audiences when we've done town halls and such like that.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like that interaction.
That's where I feel like I thrive.
I mean, whenever you're live, there's always a greater chance for something to not turn out the way it's supposed to, technically, one way or the other. But I mean, but then that's life too. Every day can be like that. So we get to the point where you realize that's how it is, and hopefully you've done your homework on whatever the subject is you're working on, whoever you're interviewing, the topic, and you can go forward. You can't slight preparation if you want to make sure you got things going through. But then again, the unexpected is the unexpected. It can pop up anytime, anywhere, and you just
it's like a first date.
Yeah, there you go. That's part of your energy, right?
Yes.
So
I wanted to conclude with this because I think it's. Lately I've been thinking about, as a teacher, I'm in my 21st year.
Yeah.
I'm headed towards the end of that, maybe transitioning into this, and I'm thinking a lot about legacy. Like, how do I want to be remembered as an educator? When it's all said and done for Monty Torres, the anchor, the media personality, the presence that we use to learn our news, how do you want to be remembered?
It's an interesting question. I want to be remembered as honest as I can be, clear, accurate as I can be. But I also want to be remembered as a real person, and what I hope underlies what I do, whether it's obvious or just subtly in the background. What I hope underlies everything that I do is that I'm a person of faith. I believe in God and Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And because of that, as far as I'm concerned, that's the most important news in the world. And apart from saying that, you look for whatever ways, as the scriptures say, capture every moment to show it and to let it reflect in who you are and what you do. And that's the most important thing as I'm concerned, especially in this day and age. In fact, I'm working on something right now, a story I'd like to put together. I'll tell you more about, but it's on that subject and some things happening right now. But that's the most important thing that I would want. I want people to recognize and realize that, because I don't think there's anything more important.
So given that, you're part of the media world, and I don't know what the rules are in terms of religion, right? I, kind of slide it in there where I can.
Yes.
Is there a way where you can kind of convey to your audience, like, hey, I'm a man of faith?
I'm going to say it whenever I can, whenever it's appropriate, when I have the chance.
Does it ever get edited out, or?
No, when I'm alive, it doesn't. I'm going to say it because I believe it's the truth, the absolute truth, the most important truth, and to hide it would not be be honest in terms of who I am and where I'm coming from. So that's how it's going to be.
Wow!
And if it
he just turned into my favorite. He just turned instantly my favorite. Wow, media person.
Nobody has.
I love all of you, but
nobody's told me not to do it yet. And if they don't want me to, they'll let me know, I suppose. But and that doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. But
yeah,
because
have you ever gotten in trouble?
No, haven't yet. And that's really not the thought in my mind, though, because there are certain things that are, you take a look at your priorities and what's most important, and what you will be judged by. And if I'm told to be silent on the most important thing, then I can't do that. Yeah.
How long have you felt this way? Like, is this something
pretty long time, pretty much most of the time. But if anything, I would say it's gotten keener as I get older, and as I see the things going on in the world, the things happening in the world right now, and over the next few weeks are stunning. And lean back. There's a whole viral thing going on. I don't know if you've seen it on TikTok right now, of Christians going on there a lot, and even non-Christians talking about what's happening leading up to the next few weeks right now. And that is
seen that,
it's fascinating, and it's part of the real world. It's looking at what's happening. Give you an example. The country of Turkey 2 or 3 days ago came out and cut all ties with Israel. Now, they've had an alliance in the past with Israel. They've had mutual training, a lot of trade. They cut off all trade and everything like that, and declared Israel a terrorist state. This is, of course, over the Gaza thing going on right now, and Turkey's taken a harder line. And there's a certain, that taking alongside with Iran and Iran's position toward Israel, there's something building here, and a confrontation building that it's getting closer and closer to. Even though they had the conflict already with Iran that involved us and the B-2 bomber and so on like that, it's not over. Iran says it's not over. Israel says it's not over. Israel right now is moving into Gaza and want to clear it out completely. That will never go unchallenged yet. I mean, although it's not been spoken, the tensions are so high there. The tension between Egypt, it's surrounded right now by its enemies, and there are things spoken of in scripturally too, in terms of the surrounding of its enemies, that are fascinating to look at. Even if you look at it just not from a perspective of faith, from a historical standpoint, and say it's interesting that these very old records project a situation like that and speak of that, and it's politically taking place right now. And it's interesting that this small little country in the Middle East was foretold in an ancient book to become a millstone around the neck of every nation in the world, at all nations, and that is exactly happening. And you can't say that's not happening at this point. There is no nation in the world, it seems to me, that has more ire from the international community right now than the state of Israel. Where is that going to go? And it looks like it's leading and building up to a point very soon where it will come out into a full military conflict again. And all these things that are going right now, the dynamism there tells me that just the things spoken of and foretold and written are things to be watchful of, even if you're only just curious about it, because what's playing out right now is playing out right now. So,
oh, well, we'll stay tuned and watch you report it as it happens.
Amen.
Thank you. Monty Torres in the studio with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Longtime anchor, opera singer, and a man of faith.
I'm not quite an opera. I sing opera, but I don't.
You're not going to take that title. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, guys. If you enjoyed this interview today, please like, subscribe, comment, follow Monty as he continues to report. Channel 26, we'll put a link to that as well. Is there any other links you'd like to add? Things you might support, things you'd like the audience to know about?
I hadn't thought about it, but I can't think about it right now.
Well, anything you do, text me and we'll add it to you.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you for taking this time off on a Sunday, our Sabbath day, to be with us.
My pleasure.
Amen.
Thank you for asking.
There was a reason it was at 3:00. It's because I wanted to make sure we were at church this morning.
That's fine.
Which I'm sure that probably.
I get it.
Right. So thank you for that. Till next time, speaking from Monty Torres, James Chance, and Rob Izquierdo, it's love, peace, and chicken grease. We out.